Oh, man. Hi, everyone. Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new pop group album.
Okay, but is it the real pop music? Because I only listen to the real stuff.
You know, they're not even really pop, so we're just not gonna...
It's gotta be real. It's gotta be that real pop.
We're not gonna go there! The record is Citizen Zombie. The pop group is a Bristol-based post-punk band who dropped their debut album in the late 70s. It's one of the most important and fantastic post-punk albums ever, in my opinion. If you're not familiar with post-punk music, it can be a lot of things. Generally, it was a group of artists in the late 70s and the early 80s that took inspiration from the throttling aggression, the rough around the edges aesthetic, as well as the simplicity of punk music, and fused it with other competing genres at the time, sometimes psychedelic and krautrock music, or disco, experimental rock, art rock, in the case of the pop group, a little bit of jazz. And this lack of limitations led to post-punk being a pretty diverse genre. It's sort of more of an umbrella term or a description of an era in punk music more than it is a description of a finite sound. And with this diversity came a league of offshoot genres like no wave and dance punk. Groups that were playing noise rock and gothic rock around this time period also had very close linkages to post-punk. But the pop group's approach to this style of music was very freakish. It was loud. It was herky-jerky, and topped with the incredibly shrill vocal stylings of Mark Stewart. Check out the song We Are All Prostitutes, which was the first song I'd ever heard from the pop group off of a Rough Trade post-punk compilation years ago when I was in college. And even today, that song still sticks with me. It's a messed up song, and even people such as Nick Cave of The Birthday Party and Nick Cave of the Bad Seeds has had this song sort of turn his life upside down as well. So on this debut pop group album, you get these rock songs with really noisy guitars, visceral, crazy, jagged dance grooves. And tracks like this are coupled with long, strung out, cacophonous, tortured experimental rock pieces that can get kind of abstract. The band's sophomore record in 1980 really followed suit stylistically for the most part, although it has not received the same critical acclaim over the years. They dropped a compilation not too long after, and then the pop group was essentially kaput. The band's lifespan was incredibly short, but each member splintered off into a variety of different groups, a lot of which were influenced by a lot of the same genres. So the band left us with a beautiful corpse, a short but very volatile discography. Decades later, the band saw fit to reform in 2010 for some live performances, and now just 5 years later, we are getting the pop group's first studio effort in 35 years, which is kind of weird. These days, we're getting comeback albums from artists that were hot in the 90s, in the 2000s. The pop group really is long overdue for a comeback. Not only that, but there are plenty of other groups that came out of this era of post-punk music who were contemporaries of the pop groups, and they are still making music today, such as Mission of Burma or Gang of Four, Wire as well. But I don't really enjoy their new stuff quite as much as their old stuff. So admittedly, with Citizen Zombie, I was kind of expecting disappointment, and I even had myself convinced maybe through the first half of this record that it just wasn't going to be good. But I think the band actually pulled through. And even though I think Citizen Zombie in a way might still be kind of a picture of an aging band, by far the pop group is not quite as out of control as they were in the 70s and the 80s. And the opening track here puts on display for all to hear a noticeably cleaner approach to production, especially with the heavy, punchy drums and the kind of glossy and very rich and nicely harmonized group vocals that make for a really epic chorus. Citizen Zombie! But the band still maintains a lot of those eccentric, insane, and lovable qualities that made their early work so fantastic. For one, the dance grooves, the jerky dance grooves. Then we also have Mark Stewart and his yelpy vocal quirks, as well as his very sharp, critical, and satirical and snarky lyrics. And on top of that, what I think the band continues to do well is sort of subvert and pervert established pop tropes, ideas, modes of musical expression, which I think was one of my favorite things about post-punk music in general, that they were taking more accessible forms of music, fusing it with punk for just a really odd, freakish, and danceable and catchy sound. So there are plenty of tracks on this record that are weird, do feel like oddballs, but are insanely catchy as well, like Mad Truth, which features this either plinky guitar or synthesizer lead that sounds like a steel drum. Take a stand. The vocals on this thing are insane, but the melody they're singing is absolutely sick, and feeling a strong 10 on the groove. And the song S.O.P.H.I.A is equally as danceable, and I think features one of the best hooks of the year. Assume nothing, everything, everything. And on this record, the band actually pushes outside of the pop blends they're usually toying with and experiment a bit with dream pop on a track here. There's a really glossy, thick, heavenly crescendo on the song Nowhere Girl that sounds really lovely. And while it may be kind of heavenly, it may be kind of dreamy, Pop Group definitely put their own weird spin on it, keeping this saccharine and syrupy style of music really bold and sharp like a knife in the shoulder. And without Stewart's vocals on the song Age of Miracles, the pop group could really pass for like a modern day indie dance pop group. That constant, very clean kick drum, as well as the kind of delayed, very clean keyboards on this track. I think there's some DJs that could sample the very beginning moments of this song and make a really cool, epic EDM jam. I actually kind of just turned my head. I'm like, am I listening to the same CD when this instrumental came on? And then once Stewart's vocals entered the picture, the song really took on a different flavor. I mean, his singing is really enough to send any instrumental tumbling down a rabbit hole of insanity. So there are some really catchy, hard-hitting, accessible tracks in the track listing here, but the band also, of course, goes on to the darker side of the fence and pulls together some really dreary and abstract tracks, like on the closing track here, which is a ballad, a piano ballad to be exact, with some overdubbed vocals and just a really depressing, sad vocal melody coming off this song. Stewart's vocals are horrifying and kind of soulful at the same time. There's also the very abstract and danceable Shadow Child, which kind of feels like a Frankenstein monster of different pieces of music that might have been recorded in the studio and then sampled later and then thrown together. These bass lines, a bunch of different vocal takes, some very eerie dissonant strings. The song features a similar aesthetic to other tracks on this record, but it's very apparently assembled in a very different way, giving it an obviously different vibe. The song Nations features an electronic, pulsating, quiet rhythm hanging in the background as Stewart delivers some very cutting, satirical spoken word. There are lyrics, very interesting lyrics, sometimes funny in how snarky they are, lyrics all over this record dealing with societal norms and religion, addiction, paranoia, modern technology, which honestly just adds another layer of awesome to an already very solid musically and production-wise as well album. I think all around this is an incredibly impressive release, and I think one of the better comeback albums of the decade so far. This is just a varied, well-written, well-performed, energetic, exciting, and I think explosive post-punk record with a strong personality, great sound, and I don't really hear, at least in my opinion, an Achilles heel on this album. Again, I do think it is apparent in a sense that the pop group has aged. They are a different band at this point, but I can't really hear that working against them in any significant way on this record. I'm feeling a strong 8 to a light 9 on this album. Transition. If you've given this record a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, the pop group, Citizen Zombie, forever.